Kaisers Kastle.
Returns. This is the continuation of the who, what, when, where, why, and how. So, I had to take care of a little bit of a personal issue real quick. I gotta go deliver something to somebody, and I thought it was an emergency. I had to do it right now. So, with the who, like I was saying, I don't see it problematic if you're using somebody as a CI. You know, I think it's sometimes dirty business on how that is actually implemented. But that's law enforcement. Just like that's entertainment, right? Well, so I've described to you the difference in that short broadcast of why Intel does things, law enforcement doesn't. I'm going to continue to do that. So I've also said you're not always going to know the who unless you physically see it happening, because mostly it's taking reports. And it's the same with reporters in the press. They should act the same way. So I am going to cover it the same, but you have to understand they're reading the reports after it, but everybody's in such a rush. A lot of times they'll name the wrong who. We've seen that numerous times. And they'll go on with different things, and I'll get to them. Now the what. Pretty cut and dried. What happened? Committed mopery, which is a fake offense. It means nothing. It's just something you say in both communities. You know, in the umpteenth degree. You know, so you're going to have to put cuffs on him, right? So maybe you think you know what the crime is, but maybe upon the investigation, remember, shoe leather, that's what you're wanting to do. You're wanting to put shoe leather on it. See what is the issue in a real sense. And that's going to come from interviewing people, talking to people, finding out what exactly happened, because maybe he did something totally different. Maybe somebody with shoplifting goes through a door, and don't think I don't know about this because I've seen it happen before. Guy shoplifting goes out the door. It's a snowy day. Both him and security guy fall down going out the door. Well, in my state, if you make any contact, that means even during the fall, if they would have made contact, it becomes robbery, which is now a much larger crime than shoplifting. And the law enforcement officer who went in front of the grand jury stated it as, you know, a robbery. And I said, did you physically see it? He's like, no. I happen to be put on that grand jury. That's why I know this intimately. And so I said, well, who saw this? Is the security guard available? Yeah. Okay, so we continued it till next month, found out nobody touched. So it's just shoplifting. That guy would have went away for robbery, you know, but instead he's going to get charged with shoplifting, which is the righteous charge. He used no force, did not touch anything. You can't say there was any force used. Makes sense, right? But see, that's what I mean. The what can vary from making it less than or more than. But it's about the investigation. Now the where. The where is usually going to be consistent for the event. And also with the what, you're going to explain the event even in intelligence or, you know, being a reporter. What happened. But you have to, here's the thing about this rush that everybody wants to be first. You have to investigate. Then when you're at the where, that's usually going to be a definite place. But it can be a few places. Let's say somebody commits murder and you find the body here. Well, that's where you found the body. But if indications show that it was moved, anything like that, that where may change. You know, pretty basic. The when. When did it happen? Well, forensics got it down pretty good today, you know, nowadays. You can pretty much target the time of whatever. that it happened. And there's video, uh, you know, there'll be video around, and, or people with their cell phones will capture events. I mean, this is just real. And so the time will be on lock, so you'll know the when. Now, the one thing you might never know is the why. And honestly, the why, while it's good to know, it's speculative in every case, everywhere, because you never really truly know what's going on in somebody's mind. Somebody may say that it was a lover's spat that went awry and it was an accidental whatever. That may be true, or it may be false. People lie. So the why is nebulous, and while it's good to know, you may never know it. And you just have to accept that reality. Even in an event, you may not know. They may say it's terrorism, or they may say it's not terrorism. Maybe it's office violence, but it ends up being terrorism. You just don't know until you know. Now, the how. I'll give you an example. One lady, this is a long time ago, many moons ago, her and her husband were known to fight all the time, argue and fight. And I mean, it was well known. That's what they did. And go to the scene. Now, anybody who shoots rifles will know what I'm talking about. Usually on a rifle wound, you're going to have an itty bitty hole. And then as it tumbles through the body, you're going to have a much bigger hole as it exits. That's normal ballistics. It happens all the time. And so, yeah, of course, somebody murdered her. And there's only 2 prints on it, hers and his. But for some reason, it was odd that her grip was exactly opposite of what you would think, because instead it was like a thumb was on the trigger, and her handprint was odd hand out, different than how you'd be holding it with all the whirls, double whirl, all that crap going the opposite way for the print. And you're like, well, what's going on with this? Because everything indicated shot in the back. Well, luckily there was a good forensic guy, and the cop on the scene also found powder burns to the front and some on the exit wound in the rear, which is what it turned out to be. And it's because the lady pushed the gun into her stomach, a 30-06. So it blew the stomach out from the overpressure, and that's where the pressure went, and it made a itty bitty hole in comparison out the back, because basically she blew away all the meat from the blast of the gun, not necessarily the bullet travel. Pressure just expanded the softest part of the body, which was her belly. That's a factual story that happened. But see how the how can change too sometimes. But that's a mandatory thing. You have to figure out the how. And that's only through investigation and getting with people that are experts. I'm not an expert in that field. But there was an expert, and every expert on everybody said, nope, she got shot in the back. Had to be her husband. Well, guess what? We found out it wasn't. And it was because of the evidence left. Sometimes, you might think somebody fell off a bar stool and hit their head. And then you talk to people, and they're like, nah, didn't fall off a bar stool. They got into a little shoving match, and he tripped on it, hit his head, and died. Well, that just changed everything, didn't it? From an accident to a homicide. And people will lie about that too. But luckily, like I said, we can point to a lot of stuff going on. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you have to put your critical thinking hats on. If you're trying to figure out the why, usually the whys are over in everything: money, sex, love, anger, fear. These things are all sources that can take somebody to do violence or to do something wrong or whatever. Religious ideology for terrorism, you know, even, I'm talking terrorism all ways. Some people are religiously motivated. Some people are politically motivated. That's the textbook thing for terrorism. And ideologically motivated. It takes all kinds. So when that happens, you may never know it until you know it. Let's say, I'll give you an example, and they're still being vague about it. I'll give you two examples. One is the Vegas shooting. It's ranging everywhere from lone wolf to Islamic terrorists to a gun deal gone bad. I've made a video on that a long time ago, and my opinion's out there. My opinion's informed opinion, but it's still my opinion. You know, I have nothing to do with anything. I just know what I know and believe what I believe. The other one is, how many times have they said, and it's always the white hats, the white helmets in Syria that get all this good videography, right? I mean, production level, phenomenal production level. And it's always Assad who did it. Well, it's not always Assad. No matter what people want to think, right now it's been proven it wasn't him numerous times. Numerous times. And when people say that they found this military grade now on this new one, okay, it could be correct. Remember, Saddam Hussein was supplied, and of course everybody says there was no weapons of mass destruction. I can tell you differently, because we found them accidentally. But most of them were flown to Syria for safekeeping. There's a general who wrote a book on it. Now, when you have stuff like that and you have an unhealthy state, that stuff can end up in enemy hands. So with them saying this last attack was weaponized, Russian, well, I have two problems with that. One was the attack in England, the UK, of the former defector spy, which is ambiguous at best on that right now. And it was Russian produced. Okay, maybe so. But Russia said, send us a sample. We'll tell you when it was made, where, and they can. You know, people are smart like that. They can break down the chemical components, and they can figure out what batch it was. Even down to the batch. They did it with oil during the first Gulf War with that technology. They could tell if it was Iraqi oil being sold through another country. One of the friendly countries like Syria or something. And they had people going out to sea checking the oil as it came in and running tests on it and turning them away if they were coming in. Now, with that being said, they didn't provide a sample of it to Russia. That raises alarms. The second thing is, we know that in Syria, the rebels, which we funded, but the rebels were nothing more than ISIS-2, You know, that's Al Qaeda versus ISIS. It was factional. Everybody knows that. And we got in bed with the terrorists again, just like we did with the Muj, which created Al Qaeda. So we doubled down on it. And by the way, some of the chemical agents and stuff that we had that was in Iraq was from Germany and the U.S. and from the UK. So always question what you're being told. With that being said now, Russia said send a sample. That's a legitimate thing. Send them a sample. You're now talking about sparking a world war. You do not want to go into that lightly. And yet everybody's rushing. This is deep state crap. Again. We still haven't drained the swamp. So what should they do? I know that's going to be a question. What should they do then? Well, they're not sending a sample. And that's a wrong move. Completely wrong move. So with that being said, we're getting ready to kick off into something that we maybe don't want to take a bite out of. And if we do, I think due diligence should be given to ensure that we know all the facts. When you're talking about going to war with another nation, even if you think you can win it 100%, you are talking about people's lives. And if it's a country that has weapons that can travel great distances, intercontinental, and deliver payloads of massive destruction, you're probably not going to get out of that one unscathed. So that's why it's important and why I wanted to bring up the 5 W's and the 1 H. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. Because, like I said, some of it you'll never know. Possibly never know. Without a thorough investigation. In 48 hours, we got good people. They can do a lot of good things fairly quickly. But why rush something when a pause, the old adage liberals used to love to say, let's take a pause for the cause, right? Well, I think for due diligence to be done, we have to take a pause for the cause. And with that, I believe that I'm finished explaining what the point of this little talk was. And thank you for taking a nice seat on my comfy big orange couch, sitting next to the war room, the physical manifestation of it. Pour yourself a cup of coffee or a nice hot tea. Grab a libations. Thanks for stopping by Kaisers Kastle today. Shuff out.